Thank you, Fanny. Yat et also. Shik asha dene. Shaya lana Gilmore yanashia. Zitna odili dene. Hashka hazanishlen. Do twa kana bashichin. Aro tenasani de shiche. Do twa headlini additionella. Shachina aya kia ani addition. Shawet aya trapa hayadashin. Twa det nasha. Akut out in Estanishlen. I just wanted to welcome all of you and let you know that I will be co-facilitating with Stephanie. My name is Lynette Gilmore, and I'm from Loop, Arizona, in the Western Agency, but I reside in Winter Rock, and I've been with Advocacy Medical Center since 2010. 7 of those years were at the Adolescent Care Unit, and I'm going on my 5th year here at the Family Advocacy Center. And my educational background consists of psychology, human services, and education. And I just love my job. It's challenging, but I love my job. I love what we do, and I like the people that we are able to serve. And I'll go ahead and let Stephanie introduce herself. Yeah. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Perkins Shea. I'm Twitch 18 Tzadna Bithni Bashchin Ashihin Deshache de Bethlejina Deshanella Nakabatoe Denasha. So I am originally from Mexican Springs, New Mexico, and I reside in Fort Defiance, Arizona. I have 3 children and 2 grandchildren. I have a Tsui Yeje and I have a little Nelly girl. And so my life is filled with my grandkids. And now I know how it feels to be a grandma and the love, a special kind of love that it shows with your grandkids. So I have been here with the Advocacy Medical Center for 13 years. I've been here with the Family Advocacy Center for about 3, maybe going on 4 years. And so I'm delighted that some of you returned for our last portion of this presentation. Go ahead, Lynn.
So I'm going to share our screen, which consists of the PowerPoint. Oh, Fanny, you need to, it says it's disabled.
Okay, try it again.
Okay, there we go. So let me open this. Okay, so we're sharing the screen here. Just need to move us all out of the way. Okay, so thank you again for joining us for today's presentation. This is the last of the series of presentations for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And where Steph and I left off was a few weeks ago, we did a presentation on the Family Advocacy Center, who we are and what we do. And then Dr. Arnellis covered child sexual abuse and sexual assault. And so today, Steph and I wanted to cover advocacy, support, and resources, healing after sexual assault and child sexual abuse. So we'll go ahead and get started. We wanted to start with a definition of advocacy, which is the act or process of supporting a cause, the act or process of advocating. And we wanted to mention that the Family Advocacy Center uses a trauma-informed approach at all times, simply because our patients are coming from a place of trauma, and it could have happened numerous times, more than once. So we have to be very sensitive to that, and we want to provide a nurturing, supportive, comfortable environment for our patients using the trauma-informed approach. We also wanted to mention that they might not have a trauma-informed approach experience leading up to us and maybe after us. So we want to make sure that we are comforting in that way, and we're paying attention to their needs and what they need during our process with them. And then I wanted to share the Sexual Assault Demonstrative Initiative quote, and that is: a trauma-informed system uses the principles of safety, trust, cultural relevance, choice, collaboration, and empowerment. And this is in a nutshell everything that we do. So we wanted to include that as well. So with the FAC support services, our first point of contact with our patients is following traumatic incidences. Therefore, it's imperative that the assigned advocate provides support, attention, empathy, patience, anticipatory guidance, and resources through multiple processes that the patient and families may encounter. So we have to pay attention to where they're coming from, but also where they're going beyond us. And there's several processes that they have to encounter. And we want to make sure that they're going to be okay with that and also have an awareness of what to expect. So we'll start off with the FAC medical process. So we left off from our last presentations talking about who we are and what we do. In this bullet, we're leaving off of that because in the previous presentation, we didn't talk a whole lot about our advocacy. So that's what this presentation is. We've already seen the patient at this point and they've come for their follow-up appointment. And this is where our advocacy starts, is at the follow-up appointment. And from here on, this is where we're involved, Steph and I. So we are with Dr. Ornelas, and we quietly sit with her and the patients or the family members during the medical history and evaluation. And when needed, when she does need us in the exam room, we're in there helping her with the patients. As far as healing goes, it's encouraged, but always at the pace and willingness of the patient. And from the moment the incident occurs, the person is a survivor, not a victim. And we use that terminology. We emphasize that with our patients because they are survivors. They're survivors of child sexual abuse and sexual assault. And they have to continue to be survivors and to enable their healing, to cope with what's going to happen from here. And even the little ones are little survivors, but they're also victims too. But we want to use that terminology to empower them.
So continuing on from support services, we have law enforcement, investigative, and court process. This could be a lengthy process, and we often let our patients know what to expect. We give them realistic expectations because not everything happens when we want them to. And especially for a family that has gone through a traumatic event with their child, and maybe the perpetrator's in the home or the perpetrator is a family member. They want to get this process going and prosecute the perpetrator that has harmed their child. And that especially goes for sexual assault. So we want to let them know that we do the medical portion of the evidence collection, making sure that their child or the individual is okay, their body is going to heal. But we also want them to know that they need to focus on healing moving forward. And it's not always moving forward in a faster, more, they want things to start progressing in a way to where they can get over what they've gone through. And it doesn't work that way. Our body isn't made to work that way. So we want to be able to let them know that, there is a healing process and it takes time, and that they need to work on themselves and not so much the investigation, which can be very difficult, especially when you've gone through so much and somebody has turned your world upside down. So that can be difficult, but we want to give them those expectations. Communication from the moment of the intake, Lynn or I, who the assigned advocate, remains in contact with the patient families indefinitely to discuss safety, systems, updates, therapy, triggers, and coping skills. So those are all of the things that we discuss with our patients when they do come in, and we'll talk a little more about some of those things. And we case review weekly with Dr. Ornelas and Lynn, and as soon as we get a nurse, she'll be able to participate in the case review. And this is just to discuss the intake. If we get a new patient, we discuss the incident that occurred and who this patient is and when they will be coming in, when we scheduled an appointment for them. Dr. and Alice would like to know all of those things. We talk about their needs, their assessment, what they're asking for. Sometimes some of our patients, they're not financially in a way to where they can afford certain things. So we try to figure out how we're able to help them in those types of situations. Referrals, we refer our patients to different agencies or different programs, different departments. So Dr. Nellis wants to know all of that, and this just keeps us in communication, especially if a patient calls and say I'm not here and Lynn's here, and she kind of knows like, oh, okay, we did this in case review, and I kind of know where what they need, but I'll let them know that Steph's not here. So it kind of gives us a little bit of heads up on what we're working on. And so we give updates, like I said, we had said in the last presentation, we call our patients, we ask them how they're doing, they're eating, sleeping, how they're coping, any kinds of questions they may need to be answered. And we talk about their plan of care. Dr. Nellis will go forward what type of plan of care the patient needs. Therapeutic options, we have traditional services, clinical therapy, long-term treatment, faith-based religion, support groups, and self-care. Those are all important. Those are very important that our patients are, we try to help them in that way. And some of them, they're not ready for it. So we throw it out there to them, and, throughout the time that we are in contact, they do seek traditional services or they do ask for therapy. And so we're able to send a referral to mental health instead of them having to call and try to get an appointment and do, kind of doing like a shortcut kind of thing for them, a service for them. So that's helpful. And then transportation, frequently our patients need transportation to and from their appointments. Arrangements are made with specific TMC, PRC staff who are wonderful. They don't ever question, they don't say, oh, we can't do it. They get on it and they set up transportation and they get a hold of us, and we're able to call our patients, and they're able to, and they also give us the number to the transportation service, and they can call the driver to confirm the pickup. So it's been it works well and it's wonderful. So big appreciation to the TMC PRC staff that we work with. Two-spirit LGBTQ plus friendly. Our environment is created to allow all our patients to be themselves. Comfort is a priority. We honor our patients' identity. We honor how our patients identify themselves, and we use their respected pronouns. So we want to make sure that, sometimes it's difficult in their family environment. They're not able to identify themselves on who they are and how they feel. So when we actually do our intake, we will ask, how do you identify yourself? And they will let us know, and we respect that, and we make sure that they are feeling supported in that way.
Thanks, Steph. So we're moving on to child sexual abuse anticipatory guidance. This is important to us. We have a lot to share in this slide, but we'll start with things that we tell our family members. Some of these things are prevention. Some of these are during the disclosure, right before, right after. So these are things that we want our family members to know, things that we want them to practice, and suggestions as far as how to handle situations. So the first one is prevention's sake, looking for grooming behaviors from people, perpetrators, looking for flags that, or things that might make you feel uncomfortable as far as how the children are being treated. It all starts with grooming as far as child sexual abuse. So looking out for that is important. Paying attention to sexualized concerning behaviors. So whenever children are developing and parents or family members might notice sexualized behaviors or behaviors that are concerning, pay attention to those and note them, because it could be something, or it just could be natural sexual healthy behavior. So we have we give parents a booklet, which we'll show you later, as far as how to recognize what's concerning, what's healthy, and what is something that you definitely need to come see us for. Talking to children about good and bad touch, boundaries, talking to trusted adults. And you would be surprised as far as how many children might not know what to do in this situation. So Dr. Analysis is really good about covering that and providing scenarios, and then she'll let the parents or the guardians know that your child did not know what to say or do if something were to occur. So talking about this with children and getting them to recognize who is a trusted adult, who they can go to, is good. And boundaries, their body and all that. Secrets are bad, surprises are known and positive. The difference between that and explaining that to the children.
Please excuse this interruption. Facility managers will be conducting fire alarm testing throughout the building. Again, facility managers will be conducting fire alarm testing throughout the building. Thank you.
Using correct anatomical terminology for body parts. It's so important when it comes to child sexual abuse that children know correct names for their bodies. The penis, the anus, the vagina, and families. When we meet with families, we notice that families use their own terminology. Well, that isn't exactly helpful when it comes to a forensic interview, or when it comes to the investigation. They might say the back, the front, down here. So it kind of makes things muddy in a sense. So it's good that children learn their body parts, the correct names for them, and to recognize times when children might act out, do self-harm, like cutting, changes in habits and interests. If a child was outgoing, talkative, getting good grades, just socially has a lot of friends, or interacts with the same group of friends and is just, a happy child and healthy child, then you notice they're starting to act out, they're starting to isolate, they're mad, they might pick up cutting, they might pick up substance abuse, their interests might change, they're withdrawn, they don't want to play sports anymore, they don't want to do certain activities anymore, their habits might change, the way they dress might change, things like that. It's when we meet with families, it's the light bulb goes on, like, oh, that's when I noticed this, or that's when I noticed that. So we try to talk to our families and our caregivers about noticing these changes. Another one is maintaining regular routine, structure, expectations, and discipline after a disclosure. Sometimes family members might feel guilty. Sometimes family members might give more leniency to the child who experienced child sexual abuse. Well, the children know that. The children can feel that, and they're sensitive to that. And it could make them feel like maybe they could get away with things, or maybe they're like, how come my parents are treating me different than my brothers or sisters, So we try to stress that maintaining regular routines, the structure, all the expectations remain the same. Whatever they got in trouble before, they still get in trouble for that now, that none of that changes, so that they feel that, okay, things are the same with my parents, my expectations are the same. Victims will minimize abuse. So when children talk about abuse or they disclose, they're going to talk, maybe it only happened one time, or it only happened a couple times. Well, they get here to our department and they talk with Dr. Ornelas, come to find out it's been happening for years. So they minimize the abuse only because maybe they didn't feel safe, or they're just testing the waters, Well, it only happened one time. and to see the reaction they get. If they're judged, if they're shamed, if they're made to feel guilty or it was their fault, they're not going to say any more than that. But if they are understood, believed, then they're like, okay, maybe I can say a little bit more later, So victims always minimize abuse. Healthy body development and what children will think of themselves. This is really good in respect to Dr. Arnalis. When she does her exams, when she's talking to the children, when they're little, she does the exams, she always lets them know that you're healthy, you're gonna be healthy. And because children, when they experience child sexual abuse and then they go into their teenage years, their bodies change. And if they've experienced child sexual abuse, they might think, well, am I the same? Am I developing the same as my friends and the other boys or the other girls? They wonder about that. So Dr. Arnalis is really good about talking to the children and letting them know that your body is fine. And if there was any kind of harm to it, it's going to heal, and you're going to be just like the other boys and girls like your age. So that's important to know. Who children decide to tell and why, and that's I kind of talked about that just a minute ago, as far as they talk to people that they trust, and because maybe they won't tell their mom and dad right away. They might tell their friend's mom, or they might tell their friend, and their friend might tell the mom. They might tell the teacher. They might tell anybody else besides their primary caregiver, because that primary caregiver is their everything. That they get their shelter, their food, their care, their love from this primary caregiver. And if they were to disclose to that person, they might worry about how they're seen. Will mom see me different? Will dad see me different? Will they blame me? So it's safer to tell people that they don't get all their primary care from, because that's their everything, and they don't want to tarnish that, So that's why children tell other people besides their primary caregiver sometimes. Children will talk if feeling safe. So, and they'll talk when they feel safe and believe, and they won't talk if they're feeling unsafe. If the home has domestic violence, if they're physically abused, if there's a lot of criticism at home, then of course they might feel like, well, who am I to say anything? I might get blamed if they're feeling unsafe at home. Or if they are feeling safe and there is a nurturing environment at home, then they disclose, and they might be able to talk more about more details later, So if they feel that they're believed, then there's a chance that they'll come out and heal. There are better chances of that for them to heal. We also talked to Steph and I. We talked to our parents and caregivers about not discussing the abuse around the children and other family members while the children can hear. We want to keep those children safe. We want them to feel like, oh, I overheard mom telling my auntie, and that make them feel funny, make them feel uncomfortable, and they could recant, So we try to talk to our family members about keeping the children safe and how it's discussed with other people, and also to limit the number of times that a child has to talk about the abuse. We don't want other family members saying, hey, I heard your uncle did something to you, or they didn't do that, they wouldn't do that, and make the child feel like they doubt themselves, or people are doubting them. And also along the same lines, I'll jump down to the second to the last bullet. We talk to our families about family division, holidays, distancing the children from unsupportive people and family members, around Christmas time when there's abuse, and it's you're going into Thanksgiving. Well, you have Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's that you have to have family functions with. You got to keep the children safe. You can't allow them to be around the perpetrators. You can't allow them to be around the family members who will not believe them or support them. They can't be around that kind of conflict, And then also who the parents talk to. They have to think about who's supportive and who isn't, that could be family members. We've had parents who say, well, I can't talk to my mom anymore because she's siding with the perpetrator, and we give that anticipatory guidance to give them insight into what to expect and how to handle it. I know I skipped one. Oh, perpetrators will continue to abuse children. So some family members might say, oh, he's not going to do that anymore. Oh, she won't do that anymore. Well, perpetrators will continue to abuse children. It might not be the same children all the time, but they're going to continue to abuse other children as long as they can get away with it. So we talk about all these dynamics involved in the situation, and we try to prepare the parents for that. Porn accessibility and social media. If your kids have a phone, then they have access to porn. A lot of perpetrators that we see are young because they have access to porn on their phone, and they watch porn, and they want to reenact those situations, or they show the porn to the kids, and they say, hey, let's do this, or they think what they see in the porn is sex, and it's not. It could be violent. It could be things that younger children shouldn't know. Of course, children shouldn't know this, but that accessibility is there. And we talk to families and caregivers, grandparents, aunties, uncles that bring the children in, and to say, if they have a phone, you got to check it, because porn is a click away. Social media is a click away. Bullying on social media, trafficking is on social media, just being aware of those things. So these are the kind of guidance areas that we give our family members.
Thanks, Lynn. That's a lot. CSA, I mean, that's a lot. So I'm going to go over the sexual assault anticipatory guidance also. And mainly eating, sleeping, coping skills, triggers, talking to supportive people, returning to routine social interactions, healthy versus unhealthy habits, exercise and physical activity are all a part of healing. And so those are things that we talk to our patients about. And this is what we follow up with them about their eating habits. Most of our sexual assault patients that come in or after they leave here, we'll follow up with them, and they're having difficulty eating, sleeping. They're identifying that they do have triggers. It's difficult for them to return to their regular routines. And sometimes they, instead of thinking about how they're going to move forward, unhealthy habits sneak in, and they drink, and they want to numb that pain and the trauma that they have gone through. So those are all these are all ways that we talk to our patients about healing, and how we're able to talk to them about being more conscious about what they're going through, what their body's going through mentally, physically, and spiritually. And so, their eating habits may decrease after the trauma. And so we talk to them about, ways to start kind of gradually starting to get back into their daily routines of eating and sleeping. Sleeping, a lot of our patients can't sleep, they feel unsafe, they have fear, they have guilt, and a lot of them are overwhelmed. So those are part of Lynn and I's advocacy to try to help them get back into that basic life. They have to figure out how to get back to their routines of normal daily activities in life. And it's difficult. We just tell them that it's going to have to take time. We give them ways to cope with their trauma, and we give them coping skills, advice, and things to look out for when they feel triggered. Having a supportive person to talk to. Most of our patients that come in, they don't have a supportive family environment. They get victim blamed. Why were you there? You shouldn't have been hanging out with so-and-so. That's what you get for drinking, and so it's really difficult. And so they figure, oh, well, I might as well just go hang out with whoever. So that's often difficult. So they'll call us, Lynn and I, and we'll talk to them and be supportive and get them back on the right track. And so social interactions, some of them, it's difficult for them to go into the public, place, mall, store, wherever there's social interaction. So that's difficult for them because they think they're going to see the perpetrator and or someone that they know, or they have triggers that allow them to fall back into that if they go into a social environment. So those are difficult things that some of our patients are dealing with, and we really try to emphasize some of these positive ways of getting back into, their daily routines. Exercise and physical activity are very important. And so it's just to relieve the stress and their anxiety. So these are all guidance that Lynn and I use with our patients, and most of the time it's helpful. And sometimes our patients, they don't follow through, but then they figure it out and they come back, and a lot of it is in the healing book. And so that is why we encourage them to look through this book and for some healthy ways to deal with their trauma.
So here we're going to talk about the referrals that we provide at the Family Advocacy Center. We do send out referrals, scan reports to the FBI, to Law Enforcement Family Services, CYFD, because we might feel that kids are unsafe. Kids in the home of the perpetrator are unsafe. So when we send out our scan reports, we don't just send it to the FBI and then leave it at that. When we send out our scan reports, we send it out to all the involved agencies as far as law enforcement and family services, because we want to all be on the same page. We don't want someone to say, oh, I didn't get that, and put it on the back burner. No, they all get the same referral. They all get the same scan report at the same time on the same day. So, and we note that, so they know when they get their scan report, they'll say, oh, FBI got this. Oh, Chinle PD got this. So they're able to see that, we're covering our bases with everybody. We send out referrals to other clinics here at TMC, podiatry, eye clinic, audiology, physical therapy, the women's clinic. Our patients come in and sometimes they're not in the best shape. They've been neglecting themselves. Maybe they have hearing problems they haven't addressed. Maybe they have to go to the women's clinic to get caught up on their annual exam, or they might need glasses, or things like that. And one of the clinics that we are so thankful for too is the outpatient mental health department. They work with us so well, and they know that our patients aren't in the best place, and they might miss an appointment, or they're unsure about therapy, and they know it's an option and they want to go, but it's difficult for them to talk about certain things, or getting out of the house might be hard, or transportation might be difficult. So we are so thankful for the flexibility of our own outpatient mental health department and how they receive our referrals from us and how we're able to discuss our patients' needs with them. We also send out referrals to surrounding hospitals. We work with Chinle Outpatient Mental Health. We work with other agencies like GIMC, and even off the reservation, like GIMC. We send out referrals to other hospitals and other specialty clinics. We might discover other issues that are happening during the abuse. We also sent out referrals to clinics for encopresis, and specialty things that Dr. Ornelas might see as a medical issue, and she'll send out referrals for that. We also send out referrals for shelters and transitional housing. So we are thankful to Strengthening Families for always being flexible too for our patients who might need emergency shelter, and the kids and the parent might need to be at a shelter. So we try to get them there to be in a safe environment. And then at times they might stay in the shelter, and then they might need to transition into housing. So we had a really great success story with one of Steph's patients who lived in Phoenix, and she was on her own, but she had to take in her younger sister who was experiencing CSA, and she had to be the parent. So she didn't have a place of her own, and family services was involved, and they had to get out of the relative's house that they were at. So Steph was able to provide transitional housing and shelter, and now she has her own apartment, and she is raising her younger sister. And so these are situations that we encounter. We help with NHA, we have resources for other housing assistance off the reservation in the city. And then in the red box here, we send out referrals to schools, to counselors. We help some of our patients with GED programs. We have patients who we might have seen them as teenagers and they're going into college and they don't have a lot of support. So they might call us and say, I don't know the first thing to do. How do I start? So we're able to help them get resources for college, narrow down their options, and be supportive in that respect. We also work closely with the U.S. Attorney's Office victim advocates and the FBI victim specialists because of the other processes that our patients have to go through. We staff cases with them, of course, with permission of the people involved, and we're able to work with these other advocates from other agencies. So we also send out referrals for long-term treatment, residential care, clinical treatment. We have referrals that we send out to Aaron Sam, Anderson Hosky, and John Sosi, and they're very flexible with our patients' needs too, and they're so understanding, and we appreciate them for that. We send out referrals to the adolescent care unit, and we work with Beverly Deschetney. And then we also have to keep in mind that if we have a patient who was practicing sobriety and an assault happens, then what happens to that sobriety? They might have a moment where they're like, oh, I'll just start drinking again, So we discuss these issues with our patients to be aware of these situations. So these are our pamphlets, not all of them. We've included some of our resources, pamphlets, and booklets. So in the top left corner, you see booklets, and these are on, this is what we give our patients after an assault, and it's for healing, what to expect, a guide for family and friends. The middle one was created by our department, and we wanted something that came from the NEF perspective. So we created this pamphlet to give our patients on healing. It's really good. It's also on the TMC FAC website. And then overcoming painful past experiences. On the top right, you see a pamphlet that we give out on sexual violence. It's a two-sider, it's a card, and it gives out facts and information on sexual violence. The bottom left corner is a pamphlet from Strengthening Families, and they help us out with shelters and protection orders. The middle bottom are pamphlets from TMC that we have, our own Family Advocacy Center. The middle pamphlet is what we give our patients, and it has a lot of step-by-step things that tips and information that they might need handy, their case number, the officer they spoke to, the criminal investigator, the FBI agent, and contact information in there. It's very helpful. This was created by Lynette Goldtooth, who is a former nurse of ours. And then we have the pamphlet for traditional cultural services. We give them that option as well. And then the bottom right is our booklets that we give out to our parents of our child sexual abuse patients. And this talks about how to talk to your children, how to deal with the aftermath of child sexual abuse, and also how to address sexual behaviors, what's healthy, what's concerning, and what you definitely need to come in for.
So we work with these connections with the Navajo Nation courts, Navajo Nation prosecutor's office. They kind of go hand in hand. At times we get patients or families that want to know about their case. Sometimes we're able to call and follow up with them about what's going on, where their case stands, if they've received all the evidence. And so we're able to tap into that a little, not too much, but we do work with them. We also work with them with the protection order. Althea, Strengthening Families, Althea James will help us. She's wonderful. Whenever we call her, we say we have a patient, they have questions. She is able to provide contact information for the patient to call her. She'll even come here and fill out a protection order with the families if they don't know where to go. Oftentimes families, they are overwhelmed and they are scared and they don't know what to do next. So Althea is really a good resource to tap into. And she's able to also get referrals from our office and probably other agencies to transport our survivors to shelters that, you know, they may need. And so she is, like Lynn said, she is very flexible and we appreciate her so much. Crime Victims Reparation Compensation, CVRC. We also work with them, with our patients. They are a good resource for funding. And I'll talk more about that in a slide later on. The Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence. We have attended a lot of their trainings, their webinars, but sometimes, you know, we tap into them when we need resources, if we have questions about services that might be, you know, like our patients may need special kind of services. So we're able to call them and they're able to direct us to where we need to go. So they're very helpful. And the same with the Coalition to Stop Violence Against Native Women, and that's in New Mexico. So, and we work with Jolene Holgate and she's a part of the coalition. Nas Casa, Navajo, Apache, Ute, Hopi, Zuni, Committee Against Sexual Assault. Like we had mentioned before, we meet with them monthly. And before the pandemic, we all used to, they would set up our meetings in different or various places around the reservation, or even in Hopi. We've gone to different places to host a meeting, and we collaborate with these different tribes, and we talk about what works and what doesn't work, and maybe they can give us other resources that we don't know about. So that's very helpful, and it's very positive. Dene Pride, we had talked about that earlier. We do collaborate with them. The MMDR, Murdered and Missing Dene Relatives, the MMIW, the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women. We support their cause, and we do have patients that are going through missing and murdered Indigenous relatives, and so we try to be helpful and try to give them that type of support. The Navajo Nation Sexual Assault Subcommittee, which is run by the Navajo Nation Council, but Delegate Amber Crotty, she's the forefront lady that has really been helpful in, addressing some of these issues, because within, like Lynn had mentioned earlier, it's kind of taboo. We don't talk about this, but they're bringing these issues more and more to the forefront. Next slide. So this is the Crime Victims Reparation Compensation, CVRC, which is known as CVRC. So on the left-hand side, we have the Arizona CVRC application and pamphlet. With Arizona, it's kind of difficult at times because they actually have to fill out the application and mail it in. And a lot of this is kind of like overwhelming for our patients. They see this, pages of off the application, so they don't even know where to begin. So at times, most of the times, Lynn and I will sit and we'll help them fill it out. We'll get everything, have them sign. We'll give them a copy and we'll mail it for them. So that's helpful in that aspect. New Mexico CVRC, the application and pamphlet, they actually have the application itself, and you can also apply online. So these services are funding opportunities. Each state gets funded federal money for victims of crime. And a lot of the expenses that they cover is medical and dental care, mental health counseling, other medically necessary devices, funeral and burial expenses, loss of earnings as a result of a crime, reimbursement of co-pays, and travel for medical appointments and court dates. So a lot of times we'll let our patients know, and if they're interested in this, and most of them, we try to just sign them up. But they can get reimbursed for gas, like if they have an appointment here, they can save their receipts. If they have an appointment for mental health because we referred them, they can save their receipts for that cost that they are using out of pocket. And so, and the same goes for, on the right-hand side, the Arizona, New Mexico CVRC forms for traditional healing. So, which is awesome because our families come and they ask for traditional healing, and not all of them want to go through TMC's traditional healing. They, they already established their medicine men elsewhere. And so what they can do is we give them an application. They fill out what they paid the medicine man, or what offerings or what items they use for an exchange for payment that can also be used to get reimbursement. And they have the traditional healer, medicine man sign, let them know that this is the services that he rendered and this is what he was paid. And in return, CVRC will reimburse the family that, paid for those services. So that is very helpful. So, it's not a quick, easy process. So we usually tell our patients, it's going to take time. But if you have any questions, they can call our office, and we have point of contact for our office that conducts trainings for staff, like people like us that are working with for our victims, our survivors. And so we're able to kind of see where their application is at too. So
We're down to like 8 minutes though.
okay, all right. Am I next?
Yeah.
Collaboration efforts. Like I said, we work with Jolene Holgate, and at this time she was working with Delegate Crotty. And she is very knowledgeable about, the work that we do in MMDR. So we have a picture there, and then we have the Food Security Task Force for TMC. That in our last presentation, we talked about delivering foods for our patients during the pandemic. So we just thought we'd share that.
This is, at this point, get your phones out because we're going to share resources with you. And we want you to take pictures because there's a lot of resources that you can utilize. These are healing passages. They're little statements that we like to share with our patients to build their strength and let them know that we're here for them. The blue one, the dark blue one, is called Little Sister. The one in purple they're just beautiful passages. The one on the right is in our FAC healing booklet, which is on the TMC website. It's just a little excerpt from the back page, so you can find that there. And then this was our debut of our new banner for the Family Advocacy Center. And this is President Nez, the First Lady, and Miss Navajo Nation, Niagara Rockbridge. And we debuted this yesterday at the Navajo Nation Division of Family Services Sexual Assault Awareness Month walk. So we were able to share this with them, and we got this picture. And on the bottom it says, and that means listen to your children with love. And then Steph in this picture is wearing our FAC t-shirt, and on the back it says, "Odlant behahot," and you know, we want to start by believing. And so we include these things because we want to identify with our Dene people. And these are other events that we were able to take part in. The picture on the left is Gwen Atakai and Haley Barba. They are victim specialists from the Phoenix office for the U.S. Attorney's Office. We collaborated with them for the Navajo Nation Fair, and we had a booth together and we were giving out resources. This is in 2019. The middle picture is footage of when Dr. Ornelas was involved in a documentary called Little Victims Everywhere. You can look it up on YouTube, and it's very informative, and it's about our people and about the Navajo Nation and what's happening to our people in regards to child sexual abuse. And then the picture on the right is when we attended the Miss Navajo Nation pageant and supported the contestants and the current Miss Navajo Nation at that time, who was Autumn Montoya.
Just to say real quick, Little Victims Everywhere is under our website also.
Oh,
Under
yes.
TMC website.
Yes, thank you, Steph. So this is page 1 of our resources. It talks about consent. It talks about some parts are not for sharing, which is a kid's book that we give our little ones. AJ's story about not okay touches, and that's within like a family member was touching another family member, and they had to go through therapy because of that. The healing booklet is on our website. The coalitions, The Body Keeps Score, which is a terrific book about trauma and healing. And this is the book here. And some hotline phone numbers. So take your pictures if you need to. You can call us if you need these. I'm going to switch the page now. These are more resources on shelters, toolkits, other tribes, Strong Hearts Native Helpline, the Tribal Resource Tool for the LGBTQ plus community. There's the Trevor Project, ACEs, getting the ACE score, knowing your ACE score, what that's about.
And real quick, on this list is the Hajoni Foundation. So we've had patients and we've had patients come in with disabilities. This is a foundation in Flagstaff that we were able to collaborate with and get information, and it helps with adults that have disabilities and how to transition them into being independently living in their own, residence.
Mm-hmm. Very helpful.
Very.
And then this last page of links and resources talks about, it mentions CYFD, family services, and other facilities that we work with, other hospitals, and then as well as the Hopi Tewa Women's Coalition to End Abuse, and then SAS services for Farmington and Gallup, which is similar to what we do, and the National Indian Country Clearinghouse on Sexual Abuse. And this concludes our presentation. We wanted to say Nana our friends, our allies, our colleagues, survivors, supporters of sexual assault and child sexual abuse that are with us in our fight against this. Your time, interest, and involvement in our Sexual Assault Awareness Month presentations this month is truly appreciated. And this is a little thing that Dr. Ornelas likes to share with us, this quote that for Steph and I, that the expectation that we can be immersed in suffering and loss daily and not be touched by it is as unrealistic as expecting to be able to walk through water and not get wet. We practice a lot of self-care. She's big on that, and she makes sure that our caseload is equal and balanced, and she makes sure that we take time out for ourselves because this work is not easy, and we see these traumatic incidences every day. So we're able to have that self-care and the support of Dr. Ornelas. So Steph, did you want to say anything before we start?
No, just thank you for participating and listening to our presentation. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for your time. I know it's a lot of work, but one thing that did come out is what you had said in the end about your job not being easy. Being an advocate is not an easy job. you have to know your resources and build that relationship with those resources to make it available, because you are, like you said before, the first point of contact for patients who have just experienced a traumatic event. And then you begin that de-escalation process by rebuilding the trust and reassuring each of your patients and their families are safe. And then making these resources available, making that connection for them so that they're not doing it on their own.
Mhm.
And I appreciate you doing that for all our patients. Being an advocate, it's it's a delicate position.
Mhm.
And I understand that because I was a patient advocate myself. So I understand the struggles that you come across on a daily basis. And I know it's on a daily basis. So thank you so much for doing that.
Mhm.
Thank you everyone for taking part in this lunch and learn session. I appreciate your participation. I will send out the survey. I will send out the recording. I took screenshots of the last 3 pages that they had posted. So I will be sending that out in that email as well. So if you were writing, taking pictures down, I'll send out the information. So you don't feel like you've missed out on that information, because that was very, very important information at the very end. But I thank you all for taking part. You all have a beautiful day. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Fanny. Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Thank
afternoon.
you.
Go ahead.